get out of here. It was in
Helen?
the lining.
Can I pin this ribbon on for you?
Yep.
Okay. Goes on your left side.
Side.
You can put on your sweater.
Okay, that's fine.
The camera feed is live.
Okay.
People sometimes forget that.
Where's the camera?
Right there. And it's going to picture that way. Okay. And you still want me to contact your cousin to save his word?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will take care of that.
And Ron is also going to do something.
Okay.
Ron is saying something. Ron is
on surveying.
Ron is
Sherwin, yeah, Cherry.
Sherwin.
Yeah, it's Polish. He may not know. Oh, there is. Pallbearers. Do I need to give you those? Or?
Yeah. Well, I don't need them. I just need them to go up to the back of the hearse.
Okay, Ron and Danny. Hi, Becky. I do too. She said it's funny here. It's longer. Yeah. I'm Debbie Jacobs. I'm cousin of Barry's. Barry's my brother. I'm Barry's wife. Is it a Schechter related to Solomon Schechter? I know it's a very common thing. Wait. Oh, wow, I love it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Do you ever run a meal that first generation somebody didn't have? It's so funny. Yes, our parents did it so that we couldn't know what they were saying. My parents did it in Yiddish. It did. I understand.
About you will hear your name. And if you want to know what the word you pronounce, and I don't think that would work, but I think it would be very good, you've got
Very good. You also speak French?
What, sorry?
You also speak French now?
The early part of me is
Just, I did learn something in, and I studied French, and I think took 1 year in college. I grew up in Sophie, we lived in Highland Park. That was North. She's a lot, no, she's a lot younger than me. When did your wife graduate? What was her nickname? Oh, okay, I graduated 73.
So her sister graduated in 71.
Sounds like my brother's name. Bill Pierce. Jewish, but we had Pierce. But that was from William. Well, yeah, I just meant Pierce.
And you were Debbie, you were Debbie.
Debbie Fierce, yeah. It's so funny. The people so strange is that my kid, my daughter, has twin boys, 7. And then the son just got married, but he doesn't have kids yet. Her daughter's actually younger than me. And they are supposed to go over there. So the kids are protected right now. They're not very observant at all. Like they're very fortunate to
love seeing you out.
I have to do that. No, I'm gonna go pick it up and take it to Madison, and then I'm going to, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. Oh, I don't care. It's water. Okay. Here, I can hang on to it. Okay, it's only going at H. It's not a lot of people here. And I have to go to the lawyer now.
Can I ask everyone to please be seated? No. They're just checking.
She already saw her. I saw her. I know she's in there. Okay.
Have the family seated on the chairs, please.
Let's talk. I know, but maybe somebody wants to sit in front. Okay. Al has been part of
I'll
my
stand.
family.
I'm good.
I need to stand, you know.
If I may have your attention, please, we're about to begin our service. If I could ask that everyone please turn your cell phones to their silent mode before we begin.
Ellen.
Conducting our service today is Rabbi Barry Schechter.
Mismole David, Adonai, mi Yaakov Yalecha, Mishkon v'har kodshecha, Holech tamim, u'foel tzedek, v'dover emet b'vavam, לא רגל לשמוע, לא עשה מריהו רע, וחרפה לא נעשה, על קרבו בו. נבזה פיניו נמאס, ואת יראי אדוני יכבד, נשפט ברע, ולא ימיר, כספו לא נתן בנשך, ושוחד הנקי לא לקח. עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. God, who may abide in your house, may dwell in your holy mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Dear friends, we're here for a sad and difficult occasion to say goodbye, which is one of the most difficult things that we can ever do, but also to pay tribute and to honor the memory, and even if possible to celebrate the life of Alice Hanau, the daughter of Isidore and Laura. Am I saying it right? Laura. Rachel Bat Yitzchak Laura, who's gone to her eternal rest at the age of 90, and leaves behind family and friends who love her very dearly. I should first mention her late husband Henry, and her children, of course, Helen, who is with us, and her Ron, and late Mark, and her late brothers, Alex and his late wife Rochelle, and the late Marcel and his late wife Ruth. And we have other family here. I want to welcome all of you. And we're now going to hear from your cousin, Alan, right? Alan is going to speak to us from California, I understand. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, everyone. This is Cousin Alan calling from Southern California. My cousin Helen asked me to speak on her behalf, and I'm very pleased to do this. Alice Hanau came to the United States after the end of World War II with her parents, Isidore Joseph, also known as Little Papa, and Laura Baum Joseph. They settled in Chicago where their sons Marcel and Alex Baum were living after their release from concentration camp. Alice met Henry Hanau, and they established their lives together in the Chicago area before finding roots in Waukegan. Alice and Henry ran a successful restaurant, bakery, deli, and meat store for more than 25 years. During this time, Alice was a great community citizen and gave her time and financial support to the temple and other local causes. Alice and Henry made a tough decision to sell their business, but this did not keep Alice down. Alice opened Triangle Travel, where she became the Queen of Waukegan. Alice was great at putting excursions together, and my parents, Marcel and Ruth, living in California, were benefactors of the travel packages Aunt Alice put together. My parents traveled the world thanks to Aunt Alice. Today, Aunt Alice Prince Henry and my parents in heaven, and they're beginning a new world travel together. From a personal point, Aunt Alice was like a second mother to me. During my youth, I would come to Waukegan to spend time with my grandparents, as well as Aunt Alice, Uncle Henry, and of course Helen and Mark. I recall the summer before my bar mitzvah. I came to Waukegan so little Papa could help me with my bar mitzvah studies. And this I was up to. However, after arriving in Waukegan, Aunt Alice advised me, starting Monday, I was attending summer school with Helen. I told Aunt Alice I did not sign up for this, but she said, too bad, you're going. So that Monday, I started summer school to take typing classes. Today, 56 years later, that course was a game changer, although I did not realize that at this time. The summer of 1969, when I was a rebellious hippie, I spent the summer in Waukegan, and one of our childhood friends and I got caught smoking pot. Alice was not pleased. She did not yell or pack my bags to send me back home. She sat me down and talked to me like I was an adult, with my commitment to tell my parents. I did this, and yes, I paid the price. I'm sure the brief stories of Aunt Alice are similar to experience you may have had. Aunt Alice will be missed. And thanks for touching so many of our lives. Say hello to Uncle Henry, my parents, Uncle Alex, Aunt Rochelle, and Mark. Aunt Alice, we love you. And you will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for those lovely words. And now I think we're going to hear from Ron.
As we left the funeral parlor to make the trip here, we came by way of the interstate, and Helen remembered the time that her mother was traveling on that same interstate, and somehow managed to get in the middle of a funeral procession and inadvertently led an entire string of cars to the Old Orchard Shopping Center. I knew Alice for about 20 years. When I first met her, I quickly realized that she had a prodigious memory. Family was extremely important to her, and keeping those memories alive and passing them down to the next generation was something important to her, a desire that she shares with her daughter, Helen. I feel that Alice was the de facto keeper of the family history, someone other family members could turn to if they had questions about distant relations in their lives. She loved to tell stories about her past, whether about her favorite uncle, Hanau, or about Madame Roche, the woman who literally saved Alice's life, a life that was far from uneventful. Alice was a child when the Nazis invaded France. She was placed with Madame Roche for safekeeping. Excuse me. And she, in turn, arranged for Alice to be taken in by a convent of nuns, one of the hidden children the world would later learn about. She survived the Holocaust, as did her future husband, but there were other family members that were not so lucky. After the war, she came to America, eventually married, and raised Helen and her late son, Mark. She worked with her late husband, Henry, in their deli and restaurant, and later, after it closed, went to school to learn the travel business in Waukegan, and eventually opened a travel agency in Waukegan. Alice loved to travel, as Alan had said, and she wanted to share that love with others. As a result, she literally traveled all over the world. I was lucky enough to be invited on one of those trips, a cruise down the Rhine River. A cruise that was memorable for two reasons. The first one being that many of us on board came down with norovirus. But the second reason was much more enjoyable. One day, Alice rented a bus and took a number of her charges to visit the town of Laufersweiler, where she was born. He must have been a sight, a busload of American tourists wandering around this tiny little German town. We did spend a lovely afternoon visiting, among other things, the Jewish cemetery, the old synagogue, which had been converted into a museum, and the matzah factory, which was owned by Alice's grandparents, and which had subsequently been turned into a private home. About 8 years ago, we noticed that Alice, who was living in Waukegan at the time, was having memory issues. We quickly moved her to Madison to live with us. After a couple of years, we realized she needed more care than we could provide, and moved her into a memory care facility about 15 minutes away in Hanau, Wisconsin. Dementia is a cruel disease. It takes away the person you once knew. In some cases, it brings out the worst in people, but not in Alice. Most days, she was happy and would routinely tell the staff, all young women, that they were beautiful. Occasionally, she would surprise the staff by speaking nothing but French for a day. She was a favorite of many of the staff. A survivor early in her life, she also survived a couple of falls, a stroke, and even missed getting the coronavirus. The day before she passed, Helen, our little dog Kiki, and I spent an hour with her. She was happy, talkative, quickly polished off a chocolate shake we had brought for her. It would be our last visit, and thankfully, one filled with pleasant memories. On behalf of Helen and I want to thank those of you who were able to join us today. I also want to extend a special thanks to those individuals who helped Helen make all the necessary preparations for today's service. We are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We've heard these two wonderful talks which really paint a a beautiful picture of someone who was a beautiful person. I know you told me when, Helen, we had a long and wonderful talk, and you told me about your mother. You told me about what we've heard right now, and her skill and determination to lead tours all over the world, but I had no idea that she actually led a funeral tour to Old Orchard. As the director will confirm to you, I know you may think this is unique, but as our funeral director will confirm to you, this is not the only time it has happened. And I'm very glad that you all made it here rather than Old Orchard. If you want to go to Old Orchard later, that's fine, but you're in the right place, so please be in no doubt at all. When we spoke, I remember it wasn't just a bad connection on the phone. Helen, you remember you told me, I said, where did she come from? And you said, Laufersweiler. And I said, come again? And I had you spell it for me. You recall this, right? And there's many towns in Germany and France. The longer the name, the smaller the town. Laufersweiler. You know, we've got four syllables there. This is not a large place, as you know, you've been there. Anyway, when you told me what she'd gone through during the war, and you've heard part of this, I'm always in awe of people who, like Alice, survived. But I think I said this when we spoke. She did more than survive. You know, survive means you go on living, you go on breathing. But she did more than that. I triumph may be the wrong word, but I'm searching for the right word, which is not coming to me at the moment. She did much more than survive. She didn't merely just live on. There is a wonderful determination. You think of this, you know, they go to France, they have to run from place to place. They were in Vix-sur-Seine. Vix-sur-Seine, I think, is also not too large, right? Another long name, short little place. And then Limoges. And then this wonderful lady that you asked me to be sure to mention. She's already been mentioned, but I'm going to mention her again. Madame Germaine Roche, who shielded her. She said she was her niece, to protect her, to save her life. She didn't have to do this. You know, one of our obligations, we're in a cemetery now with lots and lots of German families, and there's a monument there, many, there are memorials for people who can't be buried here because they were murdered in Europe. And we just had Yom HaShoah when we remember. It's our duty to remember those people, not enough, but those people who did these things either on a small scale or large scale. And Madame Germaine Roche is one of this small band of heroic people who saved someone because of, it's a cliche, the goodness of her heart. But that's a very important phrase, the goodness of her heart. You know, taking a risk, a considerable risk to herself, and doing this, and enabling her to survive. She saved a life. She created a life, really. She created a life. And then she meets Henry, whom she'd known before, as you told me. Henry was older than her. She was actually present at Henry's bar mitzvah. Right? Am I right? Correct me if I make any mistakes, because the story is not a simple story. And they come to the US, as you said. She comes in 1948. He comes in 48, she comes in 49. They marry, and here in Chicago on the south side there was a congregation called Ezra, which was a German Jewish congregation, which later got together with another a north side congregation, Habonim, became Ezra Habonim, and now has merged with another synagogue, which is on Dempster Street. And they go, they're in Waukegan, and they build their lives afresh. That's what I told you I'm in awe of. Because let's say you told me that someone had this horrible experience growing up, and you told me that afterwards they could never get their lives together. Let's say you told me that. I would think, and most people, that's totally natural. It's totally natural. It's not to be decried. It's not to be criticized. I would say, there but for the grace of God go I. So they're not to be criticized. But those who manage to build afterwards, they are to be praised. They are to be praised because they rise above those terrible past circumstances. I'm sure it's always a part of them. It's a part of them. It's not that they haven't erased it from their history, from their past, from their innards. They haven't erased it. But despite that, they managed to go on, and you heard about them, having a business, a deli, he was a butcher, and all these other things. And then, what does she do? She goes to school, and she becomes a travel agent. And you heard from Alan. She takes people all over the world, and she takes we heard to, this bus to, she gets a large bus, as you said, this little lady gets a large bus, and packs you all into the bus, right? And off you go to Laufensweiler. Travelled everywhere. Waukegan, as you use this phrase, Waukegan, you said, was sacred to her. She was part of the life there. They were both part of the life and the community. They travelled everywhere. I'm not going to give you a list of places they travelled to. You gave me a partial list. At some point, you should just make a much shorter list. Early cricket practice. A much shorter list of the places they haven't been to. That would be, just a couple, 2 or 3 countries that they haven't been to. So here we have someone that, when I say a model for us, a role model, it can't be a role model in the sense that I want to be like I wouldn't wish on anyone on earth what she and Henry went through. But in terms of being able to do things, to have the will and the determination, to do things, to raise a family, to be a part of a community, despite what's happened before, that is, to use a very overworked word, that is an inspiration. That is inspiring. We're supposed to learn, we're supposed to learn from our parents, in our prayers. For example, in the Birkat Hamazon, in the grace after meals, if our parents are present, we mention them. So what's the Hebrew? The Hebrew for my father is Avi, and my mother is Imi. But we don't just say Imi, we say Imi Morati, my mother, my teacher. My mother, my teacher. A parent is supposed to be a teacher. And from what we heard from Alan, by the way, she wasn't his parent, and she sits him down, and she talks to him, and influences him, and really in a way changes his life. Well, that's one kind of teaching. The other kind of teaching is by example. You see how a person lives, you see what they do. And she truly was a teacher, and for that reason, she's gone from us physically, but she goes on. She goes on. This is the Yerusha, the Morasha, the inheritance, the legacy, whatever you want to call it. She's a part of your lives, and she will always be a part of your lives. That goes on. So we salute her. We salute her this day, and of her I say, may her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. And to her I say, Alice, Rachel, Bat Yitzchak V'lo, Lechi b'shalom, geh in Frieden, go in peace. May your repose be in Gan Eden, in paradise. You will never be forgotten. You will always be remembered in love by those who knew you and loved you, and those whom you knew and you loved. Amen. And we're going to recite the 23rd. I hope we have it here. Is it in there? Yes, we have it there. If you'll open these little booklets, the 23rd Psalm is there on the left at the top. Would you read with me, please? You may know it by heart anyway. Do you all have it? Okay, yeah, we'll give you some more of these. Yes, dear. Yes. So Laura is Rachel. Laura is Rachel. Does that sound familiar? Okay, that's what it says here. Okay, I'll use that later. So let's read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. On the right side of the page we have this from the last chapter of the book of Proverbs, well, an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, which she certainly was. Eshet Chayil miyimtzah, rachok mipninim michra, her worth is far above jewels, above rubies. Batach ba'li ba'ala, her husband trusts in her. Shalom lo yasai, he lacks nothing. She does good and never evil all the days of her life. She opens her mouth with wisdom, her tongue is guided by kindness. The children come forward and bless her. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. Amen. And now, if it's possible for you to stand, if you could, please stand. If it's difficult for you to stand, you can stay seated. Please don't get up if it's difficult. Now, Ellen, you have that ribbon. If you could tear it, or have someone else tear it for you, from the bottom, the horizontal bit at the bottom, just do a little tear upwards. And then, and now, Helen, I will say the bracha with you that we say on these occasions. It's not in there. If you look at me, well, you can't see my lips because I got this thing on. But it's a very simple bracha. If others wish to join, they can. It starts out, Baruch atah Elohim melech haolam. You know the opening of the bracha. And there are two words at the end which I will say with you. So, let us begin. Baruch atah Elohim melech haolam dayan ha'emet, which means blessed be the true judge. That is what we say when we suffer the loss. El mali rachamim shochein b'mromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanefei hashima b'mahalot lashivat horim k'zarak yam asirim et nishma בת יצחק שלח על עולמה בעבור שאנחנו נודרים לצדקה ולהזכרת נשמתה בגן עדן תהי מנוחתה לכן בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפל יולמים ויצרור החיים את נשמתה. Adonai unachalata. V'tanu b'shalom alemishkava. V'nomar Amen. Pastor God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament under the soul of Alice Hanau, the daughter of Isidore and Laura, who is in eternity and in whose memory we offer charity. May her repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. And let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. And now we'll conclude the prayer part of the service with the Mourner's Kaddish, which you have there in, you have it in English letters. And I will say it with you. If you wish to join, please do so. If you don't join, you can respond. We have it in Hebrew and English, I should say. If you wish to respond, one of the responses is very simple. When we say V'imru, you say Amen. We say V'imru, you say Amen. If you know the other responses, please say them as well. I'll begin with you now. Let's begin. Yit Gadal V'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma Divra Chirutei. Ve'yamlich Malchutei. V'chayechon V'yomechon V'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael. Va'agala Uvizman Kariv Va'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Ulalmei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnasei V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shemei Lekutsha V'yichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Kushbechata V'nechemata Damiran V'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shmaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Nimromah Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru. Amen. Could you wait 1 second? Friends, you know, the gentlemen from the cemetery, living gentlemen from the cemetery, are going to lower the casket and we'll place, those who wish to place some earth on. But before we do that, we have here earth from Israel. You know, Jewish people traditionally wanted to be buried in Israel, which is obviously not always possible. So we bring Israeli earth. This comes from the Har HaZeitim, the Mount of Olives, an ancient sacred cemetery in Jerusalem. Now I'm going to sprinkle this on the casket before it's lowered, and then afterwards everyone will be able to, if they wish, to place some earth on the casket.
we're going to put the blanket on now, and anyone who'd like to participate will be invited to do so. My associate has gloves for you to put on. In the time of COVID, it's probably not the best idea to have you double without something on. Yeah, going on that side. I actually want to take the stuff back.
Did you want gloves?
No, I just throw the dirt on myself. But I did it before you put the cover on. I know it.
Oh, okay, when I was in college. I went to Memphis. That makes sense. Oh, wow. I was there during the summer. After the summer, very interesting time to be there.
We always call it the summer of fun.
It wasn't. She was there before, but
The summer after fun. If it was the other way around.
Folks, anyone who would like to participate is invited to do so at this time. Please be very careful near the edge of the grave.
I saw a movie.
except she's giving it for
I just
free.
saw a movie of a funeral that somebody fell in the hole.
Oh, really?
I can't recall the movie. Great. She's here. This is one of them. What do you like being on time? You are your mother's daughter.
I had some early commitments I need to cancel. I'm here now. And I picked these out of my yard. I picked these out of
What?
That you honored my mother by doing that.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, do a lot of work. Leave you away.
Oh.
It is? What's your job? Apprentice to who?
Montrose and Harlem. Oh, I don't know. Woodlawn, I don't know. iPad?
West Lawn. So what do you do now? I'm not cheap, I mean. You know, it does make you want to. No, it's okay. Like, that's going to be when I retire. I might go to Washington. Do something, I don't know.
You did a good job.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
No,
I took my son there too.
no, at Catholic burials, everybody leaves before they lower the casket.
Very active to be out
Well,
there.
well, he just, you know, I don't know that I do it now. But it was like,
The services here are now concluded. Thank you. The gentlemen from the cemetery are going to complete the burial with the attendant. If you'd like to stay and witness that, you may do so. If you find that unsettling, we would recommend you return to your cars at this time.
you never know. You run? Condolences? Well, we still do.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had to drop my dogs off. No, I do. I've been trying to get it since the beginning of the year.
What about that typing class?
They have the big white rooms.
I think, well, I don't know, might have been 68. I don't know whether, I took that summer typing class too.
Yeah, me too.
Everybody did, I think.
So where did you stay?
We just drove down this morning.
No, I
We're
took
driving
typing.
back now. It's okay.
I had
It's
a
not
clerk
that
job
bad. It's not that bad.
before I went
I'm gonna go right past.
Great Lakes
I think she wants to get home.
using a key punch.
I haven't seen your new little dog.
Yeah.
Had
Yeah, she's
What's her
staying,
name?
portrait.
Okay.
she's staying with my daughter together.
Oh,
That's when I realized I wanted to get it.
oh.
I think Helen wants to make an emergency deli stop
Margaret did
somewhere.
that too.
Like, I know there's one on 2
I bought a
New York Bagels. Or
A
the
shelf
other,
unit
or the
from
one
a-
on Skokie,
Oh,
or the
right.
one,
There's one called Coffee Source.
typing and stationery
I
store.
don't know. Anyway, she knows.
or Max's.
Yeah, it might be next day.
I bought a shelf unit. $25 on top of it. Little lady for something. Margaret. I'm screwed it up.
Probably.
I give it to you. Thank you.
I know she worked hard for it. I'm looking forward to my get coffee.
I need it.
I can't hear.
All in all,
That's not, that was great. So they were just home for a 3.5 days.